Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second Bridge for Cities Mayors Roundtable, which focuses on the interplay of inclusive recovery and technological innovation in cities. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the moderator of our session, Mr. Bernardo Calzadilla Sarmiento, Managing Director of UNIDO's Directorate of Digitalization, Technology and Agribusiness, who will guide us to the session. Bernardo, over to you.
Welcome to the second major roundtable of the Bridge for Cities held under the topic Inclusive Recovery and Technological Innovation. I'm Bernardo Calzadilla Sarmiento, Managing Director of Digitalization, Technology and Agribusiness in UNIDO. And I am very pleased to moderate this session. No city in the world has escaped the spread of COVID-19. What started as health emergency rapidly impacted the economic sector and the livelihood of millions of people. The pandemic is being especially harmful for informal settlements and the informal economy, where most jobs are low paid and cannot be performed remotely. Women have been disproportionately affected as they are much more likely to work in precarious employment. Historically, disruptive events have prompted a reset of sorts when it comes to cities. The cholera outbreak in London triggered the first public health policy on urban sanitation already in 1848, and the fire in Baltimore in 1904 led to the standardization of fire hydrants nationwide. The COVID-19 pandemic will likely be no different. How cities operate post-pandemic will not only be informed by the gaps the crisis brought to light, but also by the new trends that emerged, influencing mass migration to the cyberspace, digitalization of services, increased use of data, and the upsurge of e-commerce, which will most probably impact neighborhood businesses. Productive transformation policies have gained renewed prominence after the crisis, and they are increasingly seen as a tool to generate jobs, support businesses, and create wealth. Urban economies, which are usually on the frontier of technology, innovation, and economic transformation, can greatly benefit from such policy support. Cities need to avoid returning to business as usual when it comes to their smart city agendas. Instead, they must view the crisis as an opportunity to reevaluate and adapt their policies. For long-term trends will characterize the smart policies of the future. An emphasis on building resilience, embrace the digitalization opportunities, greater inclusiveness and sustainability. These policies will also need to fix existing gaps, such as women participation in decision-making processes at all levels. At UNIDO, we have been actively assisting our member states to take advantage of the opportunities offered by the digital transformation and the fourth industrial revolution, with the objective to realize the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. UNIDO's strategy to make the fourth industrial revolution work for all advocates people-centric approach to the fourth industrial revolution, where innovation and advanced technologies serve human welfare and environmental sustainability. Today, we're very pleased to have 7 majors from all over the world that will explore how smart policies can make the technological innovation that cities enacted as an emergency basis become structural, and which measures have been most effective to kickstart inclusive recovery at the urban level and to foster social resilience. Without further delay, I would like to introduce you to our distinguished speakers and to invite them to present examples of policies and technology-enabled innovative solutions adopted by their cities to boost inclusive and sustainable recovery. We have the pleasure to have with us Mr. Joe Costello, Deputy Mayor of the City of Dublin, capital of Ireland. Mr. Costello, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and thank you for the opportunity of speaking at this important event. 2 years of COVID-19 leaves a lot of food for thought, with fresh thinking and need for new ideas. And the existential threat of climate change imposes an imperative on us to do things differently, inclusively, innovatively, sustainably, and indeed swiftly in all areas, and particularly in our cities. In Dublin, we have an additional 2 factors to contend with. One is Brexit, the departure of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland, from the European Union. It's already creating a host of new economic and political problems. And secondly, the OECD agreement on the corporate tax rate has particular relevance for us. But really, these are exciting challenges too for our city. And as you said yourself, moderator, a crisis can also provide opportunities. Dublin is a vibrant, diverse city with a population of 1.5 million. It has changed dramatically from a city which hemorrhaged its youth in wholesale immigration throughout much of the last century to a thriving modern city to which young people flock to live, to work, and to study. Dublin is now European capital for many of the world's leading pharmaceutical and technological companies. Silicon Republic has dubbed it the Internet capital of Europe. Dublin has just entered the European Capital of Innovation, iCapital Awards, for the first time this year, and is one of the semi-finalists. Likewise, it has been shortlisted for the European City of Tourism. The Dublin City Development Plan provides a vision and a framework for the future development of a sustainable city. It is underway at the present time, and all councillors are receiving training on the integration of climate change and climate action into the development plan. Dublin City Council has had a smart city programme for some time. This has a holistic portfolio of over 100 live projects which are exploring innovation for public good. And we operate on the basis of the quadruple helix model for open innovation. We coordinate a whole host of stakeholders across the city in 4 categories to create and maintain a smart, inclusive, and sustainable city. Firstly, all the city's universities and research centres are linked to the programme. Secondly, industry, cutting-edge technological hubs such as the Digital Hub, Dogpatch, Dublin Docklands, and Smart Dublin are home to innovative and high-potential startups. Thirdly, state agencies, including Science Foundation Ireland and Enterprise Ireland, are all linked in. And fourthly, and probably most importantly, non-governmental organisations, community groups, and many other public bodies are part of the network exploring new technology, new processes, new services, and new ways of working to build a better, greener, more inclusive and resilient city. And I want to give you an example of a technological innovation that developed organically from one event and has helped to reconfigure and indeed transform the city at the present time. And this is the Dublin Cycling Buddy app. In 2019, Dublin hosted VeloCity, the global cycling conference. And Dublin City Council launched a smart pedal pitch, inviting startups to pitch their ideas to use technology to improve cycling infrastructure. So the Dublin Cycling Buddy app was selected and was seed funded by the City Council and developed in partnership with the Dublin Cycling Campaign community. So it's a free app which gives real-time feedback on traffic movements, traffic jams, near misses, heavy rain, potholes, etc. And at the same time, the city can avail of the non-personal data, feed it into the planning department, improve cycling, transport infrastructure in key locations throughout the city. And then this has led on to the second stage, which is the COVID mobility programme. When COVID-19 public health emergency struck, Dublin went into lockdown and the City Council launched the COVID mobility programme and appointed a COVID mobility team. And the programme aimed to quickly provide space for safe movement, business activities, and to accommodate changed transport patterns. The City Council invited citizens across the city to submit requests for walking and cycling interventions that included footpath widening, dedicated cycle paths, path development, on-street dining, facilitating new safe school road design, last mile delivery, and cargo bags. And the whole concept of filtered permeability was introduced to reconfigure streets, to discourage private vehicles, to increase cycling and walking in local communities and in the city centre. And this then in turn led to the final stage, which is the Office of City Recovery. This is established in April of 2021, and it embraced the concept of the 15-minute city. And the objective was to reanimate the city as the city reopened to business and to activities, and to increase the footfall day and night. So it produced things like a street furniture guide to facilitate outdoor dining. A circular economy training program for businesses was developed. Green to Micro, a program to prepare small business for reduced carbon emissions in the workplace. And DCC partnered with Google Air View to measure air quality across the city at street level, and many more initiatives. So in conclusion, these projects and many more have dramatically changed the character of the city, both in appearance and behaviour of the citizens. It is now a safer, more open and more vibrant place. And using citizen-generated data to intervene and to evaluate is a new, inclusive and democratic model, which will continue to be implemented into the future by the City Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing this experience of Dublin, starting with all the projects you had already on Smart City, your innovation ecosystem with research and education, the startups, support to startups, mobility, and finally the recovery, especially looking at sustainability, clean air, circular economy. Thank you so much, Mr. Costello. Let me now move on with our panel and introduce Mr. Eric Hubbard, representing the Mayor of Freetown, Sierra Leone. He will share with us some innovative actions taken by his cities. Mr. Hubbard, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you all. It's great to be here. I bring you greetings on behalf of Mayor Yvonne Akisoye, the Mayor of Freetown. I serve in the role as advisor for environment and climate action. This has been a 3-year journey where in 2018, we established the Transform Freetown Agenda. This Transform Freetown Agenda set a pathway to transform sort of the economic, the social, and the natural capital of the city within the context of the next 5 years. We have been on that journey for about 3 of those years now, and a major component of it has 4 priority clusters and sort of 4 clusters, 8 priority sectors, and 19 targets. And the key sector that we focus on is around sort of building resilience. And within the context of that, there was a target that was set to increase tree and vegetation cover by 50% of 2018 levels by 2022. And in doing so, in creating such an ambitious target, we also developed our Freetown, the Tree Town campaign to plant, grow, and digitally track 1 million trees in and around Freetown over that period by 2022. The idea was around building a green circular economy, investing both in green technology, green infrastructure, and in communities. And then building out a process where we could create impact investment in the trees to continue a process of growth that's connected to a community tree growing model that would allow us to build sustainable financing. So the way that this has worked is that we have built something that we call a tree tracker app. And we have embedded that tree tracker app into growing teams across 72 communities, growing areas across the whole of the western area of Sierra Leone that makes up 13 different catchment areas. All of our water comes from within this catchment. And at present, because we lose about 500,000 trees per year, since 2011, and the data is from 2011 to 2018, it's been 555 hectares, between 500 and 550,000 trees lost per year. That level of intense deforestation has caused sort of devastating effects in terms of continuous flooding and landslides, coastal erosion, sea level rise, as well as sort of exposure to extreme heat. And so the context for building a dynamic to restore that land, the idea then was through the Freetown to Treetown campaign, we'll use sort of green technology, sort of, and embed that into the community and restore 3,000 hectares of land and pull 87,000 tons of CO2 of carbon from the air. And in that context, address some of the critical issues of flooding, landslides, erosion, and the rest. So the way that this has worked is that we have a team of 500 growers. Those growers all come from a particular community. They are linked to a group of, now we have 11 community-based organizations that organize the operational areas, but all of the growing, the planting and the growing and the digital tracking is done by community members. It's all hands-on efforts. We engage youth and we engage women and we engage all of the community leaders, and they select a group of growers, and we create a context whereby we're basically incentivizing communities to grow trees in degraded areas. And when we say grow trees, that's exactly what we mean. We don't have a planting program, we have a growing program. And so the way in which we structure our investment dynamics is we look at a tree from year 1 to at least year 3 or year 5, and we invest in those dynamics. So what we do in terms of the tree tracker app, once the tree is planted, then the tree is digitally tracked. We have now a digital footprint of 251,000 trees that are on our system. Those trees are connected to a particular grower. The growers track the tree every 2 months, and every 2 months they receive a payment. In local currency, it's 1.2 million leones. This is a meaningful amount of resources that adds supplemental income, that allows for school fees, that allows to move from charcoal burning to gas. All of those kinds of alternatives can be created by these resources that come in and sort of transform the dynamics of communities. Now, once we get those resources, the trees, onto the system, once they're tracked, then they're verified. Once they're verified, we add what we call a token. We give it a token ID. That tokenization process allows us to take a tree and to basically create currency that can be traded. So for each, so every tree gets a tree ID, a token ID. That token ID, sort of then becomes currency that's put into our Freetown wallet. We have now, and the idea is that we will trade those tokens, those impact tokens, for money that then goes back into the community to continue to continuously allow us to be able to meet our 1 million tree target. We're basically building, sort of a climate finance dynamic that is, sort of linked directly to community growers. And so we offer a carbon offset to corporate and institutional investors. They purchase a token. 1 token equals 1 new tree and 1 existing tree. If you invest in 1,000 tokens, then that means you're investing in 2,000 trees. Each token is valued at $6 US each, basically $3 per tree. So we spent 2020, sort of planting, and the context was that in the middle or the height of COVID, we were able to create 553 direct and about 1,000 indirect jobs, green jobs over that period. Those growers who were part of the process in 2020 continue to be a part of the process now. We look at a dynamic in terms of the payments that they get with the periodic trackings, that over a life of a tree, a particular grower can get 21 million leones over a, say, 36-month period. These are resources that can absolutely and completely change lives and add sort of a significant level of value, both in a context that we call both people and planet. So we grow the capacity of the community to become climate resilient, but we directly sort of have an economic impact to community members, but also then have an environmental impact on nature and the land and the space that needs to be restored in order for us to adapt to the changing environment that has been caused by climate change.
Thank you so much for sharing very interesting examples and bringing about how the challenge of climate change and how you are building resilience with the planting of trees and combating landslide, the floods, deforestation by a very systemic process of introducing technologies, tracking, having traceability of the planted trees through digital trackers, through the TOCAs, but also what you mentioned very clearly, the inclusiveness of the communities. Thank you so much for these wonderful examples that you brought. And let's move to our next speaker in a different continent, in Cambodia. We have now Mr. Nuon Prarat, Deputy Governor of Phnom Penh, capital city of Cambodia. The Deputy Governor has also participated in the 2019 edition of Bridge for Cities event, so he is very much engaged with our Bridge for Cities yearly event. Mr. Prarat, I invite you to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Bernardo Cazadilas Saminto, Managing Director, Directorate of Digitalization, Technology and Agribusiness of UNIDO. My dear colleague mayors and deputy mayors, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. So as Mr. Moderator just mentioned, I'm very happy to be here again. And on behalf of the Phnom Penh, capital city of the Kingdom of Cambodia, I'm delighted to join the Bridge for City 2021 conference for this immensely important and timely discussion on inclusive recovery and technological innovation. During this pandemic, Phnom Penh, capital city, like other cities across the globe, has been hit by the COVID-19 crisis that go beyond just health crisis to social and economic consequences. The 2.8 million residents of Phnom Penh capital had been hardly hit by restriction measures and almost 1 month city lockdown, which have had uneven economic impacts across sectors. Among them, garment workers, which account for nearly 500,000 people, as well as those who work in SME and other service sectors, especially street vendors, are impacted by the pandemic. It also impacts the way of our living, education, way of working, and way of doing business. Facing to the above challenge, Phnom Penh Authority joined the effort of the Royal Government of Cambodia under the leadership of Samdech Techo Hun Sen, Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Cambodia, in bringing our city out of critical situation toward a stable one. We have defined COVID-19 as common enemy for all and set a clear common mission, which is to first save life and to survive the crisis with existing resource available. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to share some experience that Phnom Penh has been practicing during this hard time of the pandemic toward recovery stage. Firstly, after the long fight against COVID-19, we are now embracing the new normal and start reopening the economy and society gradually, safely, and responsibly, because COVID-19 would be here with us. So we have to well manage and to move forward. We have to say thank you to the National Deployment and Vaccination Strategy initiated by Samdak Prime Minister, where 85% of the total population and almost 100% of targeted Phnom Penh citizens are fully vaccinated. And we are now having their third dose injection for them. Now Phnom Penh acknowledge a new normal living environment as new case dropped from more than 1,000 daily to under 100 with a very low mortality rate. Our exportation in garment sector returned nearly to normal. That is good for our nearly 500,000 of workers, and most of them are female. Secondly, at the policy level, in the context of the pandemic and digital era, Cambodian government has adopted the Cambodian Digital Economy and Society Policy Framework 2021-2035, where smart city is also one of the core elements. And our Phnom Penh city, we are also working on our smart and sustainable city strategic roadmap. Both royal government and our city, we identify the importance and necessity in transforming our country and city into a new development model during this digital transformation age. And as Mr. Moderator just mentioned at the beginning, with the new policy, we do not aim only at efficiency or cost saving and growth, but also the sustainability and inclusiveness. For example, with the new policy, we are doing a lot to promote digital literacy among our citizens and our local authorities to make sure that everybody have equal access to new opportunity. We are increasing the community development budget up to 20% to be allocated to social service and social protection. During the city lockdown, we have responded to the urgent need of our residents, especially female workers and the poor, with cash transfer and foods for their urgent basic needs. We also use social media like Facebook, Telegram, and WhatsApp to improve the communication between our authority and our residents during the city lockdown. For long-term and sustainable policy, we also introduce technology to improve our social protection system, what we call ID pool, for vulnerable households and for the long-term assistance. Thirdly, Phnom Penh is also embracing, as you just mentioned, the new opportunity that come from the COVID-19 crisis to move forward, especially with the existing technology. For example, to ensure the continuity of our education, we had deployed online schooling and e-learning platform so their students and parents could get access to their classroom and lessons from home. To promote healthcare system, we use technology to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and to ensure the routine needs in healthcare system, such as Stop COVID-19 QR code tracking system, Khmer quarantine application, home care treatment platform for COVID-19 patients, and other distant health consultation platform. Also, to enhance the SME sector, we are promoting what we call a single portal where everyone could get access to relevant administration needs, pay taxes, get online business registration, and other information related to doing business in Phnom Penh. Last but not least, we believe that solidarity and trust are the fundamental success factors. The effective outcome against COVID-19 is a result of the belief and trust of our residents on the royal government and the Phnom Penh authority. The solidarity and collaboration of our residents have been shown by their willingness, including their family and children, to get freely and voluntarily vaccinated, their willingness to discount the renting fee for the SME and by the landlord, the suspension of the electricity and clean water bill during the lockdown. And we believe that this solidarity is very important for the inclusive recovery. Finally, once again, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, UNIDO. Thank you, City of Vienna and the partners for organizing today's conference to share best practices and lessons learned, which are very important for the future of our city. Thank you, sir.
So much, Mr. Parat, for this insight, especially putting emphasis on social inclusion, on solidarity, and how you have been coping with the pandemic and moving still cautiously the economy, opening up the economy, but also using digital and technologies also for your healthcare system, and how much you have been caring about people. Thank you so much for these insights. And I would like to invite our next speaker, Ms. Rosi Senanayake, I hope this is correct, Mayor of the city of Colombo in Sri Lanka. Ms. Senanayake, it is great to see you once again virtually at the Bridge for Cities. You have the floor now.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to be a speaker at the Roundtable. Thank you and a good day to all of you. I'm Rosi Senanayake, the Mayor of Colombo, which is the capital city of Sri Lanka. I'm very pleased to be part of this roundtable that I believe adds much value to its members. I found the thoughts shared by the participants who spoke before me very valuable and hope my comments will be too. The city of Colombo is by far the largest city in the country. It has a resident population of approximately 750,000, an additional daily floating population of 1 million people. Colombo being the epicenter of commerce and government, it is visited daily by thousands of people from all parts of the country to attend first official. Tackling the spread of COVID was just important for its immediate residents, but for the entire country. We adopted a multi-pronged approach to address the COVID challenge, including good old-fashioned public health activities such as house-to-house visits in some communities. But let me touch on technology-oriented approach, as that is my remit. A simple example is the vaccination appointment system we created. Initially, hundreds and even thousands of people would gather at a vaccination site, eager to get vaccinated quickly. And despite all best efforts, this quite often resulted in somewhat unruly situations which could have actually caused further spread of the disease, not to mention very disgruntled citizens who had to stand in line for hours to get vaccinated. We addressed this by instituting an online appointment making system which cut the entire process of getting vaccinated to 20 to 30 minutes. This 20 to 30 minutes includes the precautionary 15 minutes of post-vaccination observation. To do this, we worked with a popular online medical appointment booking service. Appointments can be made on a smartphone app in addition to the web. Once made, the individual gets an automatic system-generated SMS confirming appointment time and location, which is used as proof to enter vaccine locations. The second step appointments are also automatically scheduled through this process. In addition to being convenient to citizens, it also made the process more efficient. At the back end, information gathered was in a database for easy access and processing by my public health doctors or even national health authorities. This approach received much positive feedback from citizens as well as the national health and COVID-related authorities. In fact, many people who live outside Colombo have been asking their local authorities to also implement such a system. So as I said, a simple intervention, but very effective both for short and longer term. Finally, being mindful of the time limit we have, I would like to quickly add that in the longer term, and indeed, even at the present time, many of our digitization efforts, some completed, some ongoing, will ensure that the citizens of the city, especially those most vulnerable, will be able to conduct much of their business with the Colombo Municipal Council from the safety of their homes. Technology-enabled innovative solutions adopted by Colombo to boost inclusive and sustainable local recovery and resilience such as the use of ICT and digital solutions to respond to urgent needs and demand of the respective communities, the use of available technologies and solutions, and quickly adopt developed systems considering the local context to enable more informed and sustainable decision-making. Such approaches would also support external coherence and harmonization for process and workflows, create and lead the organized system of coordination, data management, and research to minimize the impact of COVID-19 on an urban population, establish a mechanism for sharing relevant findings and key recommendations within the national coordination structures to inform the inform and to adjust the multi-sector local and national responses. Online tax management systems. Citizens in the municipal area are enabled to pay their tax online through the portal available in the Colombo Municipal Council's official website. Grievance redress mechanisms. Citizens are enabled to efficiently forward their issues, suggestions, or any council services as such fire outbreaks, drainage, medical, solid waste, or any emergencies via the hotline and through the official website throughout the day. Accordingly, relevant officials attend to these issues and provide required measures. Digitized administrative systems. The Colombo Municipal Council initiated to use digital certifications, signature for administrative procedures since the 1st of January 2021. It has remarkably become much convenient for the officials during the COVID-19 pandemic to deliver services to the public without delay. Online payment systems, like I said earlier, service providers for the municipal council are benefited through the efficient online payment system also. Productive information policies in supporting urban economics to reap the benefits are some of them. I will end my remarks here. I look forward to hearing from the other participants on their experiences. Thank you very much once again.
I have to unmute. Thank you so much, Ms. Nanayake, about this experience, how you have been bringing technology to the, especially to the city services, to the government of the city, and with a special emphasis also to the more vulnerable people, how these services have been really focusing on bringing these digital solutions such as online payment, all these services to make the life in the COVID time and in post-pandemic time more easy. And with that, thank you so much. We would like to move to our next panelist, and the next speaker is Ms. Jeanette Ogrin, Deputy Mayor of the city of Umeå in Sweden. We would like to hear from you, Ms. Ogrin. So we invite you to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator and Mr. Calzadilla, and for the opportunity to be part of this very interesting Mayor's Roundtable. And as said earlier, the COVID-19 crisis has been challenging for us, but so far we have been, on an overall level, been able to handle it. The city has taken several initiatives through dialogue and collaboration to support the business sector during the crisis, but also to create conditions for a rapid restart after the pandemic. And in some regards, public health, elderly care, employment, outreach, and social inclusion, we have done fairly well. We're also fortunate to have a broad and diverse business community, which makes the city a little bit more resilient in economic crisis. We're also fortunate to have high level of trust, and I will come back to that. But no doubt there are still companies and citizens in our city that are still suffering. And it's more important than ever that we are responsive and make it easier for our entrepreneurs and to cope with the crisis. And as in many other places, it is the tourism and hospitality industry that has been hit the hardest. A sector that is important for us, employing many youths in their first job or other groups about to enter the labor market. So together with the industry organizations, the city of Umeå started a help support, a business emergency in the beginning of the pandemic in early 2020. So it has been a place for our region's companies and entrepreneurs to call and turn to for advice and guidance. And this has really helped many businesses. And the city has also cut fees and taxes for different services for affected companies. And we have provided support for business development processes through other actors, such as incubators, etc. But I would like to return to the question of trust. Nordic countries often stand out in matters of trust. People trust each other and the authorities to a high degree. And in our case, the city of Umeå, the level is even higher than the Nordic average. And one reason may be that we have a long tradition of supporting local member-based associations, not least financially in the city. We also invest heavily in education and culture. And another long-term commitment for us is to gender equality. We have worked strategically with these issues for more than 30 years. And by having a gender and a more inclusive perspective, we believe more voices are heard and from every part of our society, and that it enables us to build a more inclusive and resilient city. And we can see the results also related to the post-pandemic reality. And one example we have seen is that our strategic work on minimizing short-term contracts and guaranteeing full-time employments in the female-dominated care sector, not least elderly care, has resulted in secure employments for many women during the pandemic. We don't have a specific recovery plan for the city. We are using our ordinary budget and planning process, but it is based on an analysis of the local context with the socially aggregated data. And so it naturally takes the effect of the pandemic into account. And as we have experienced during COVID-19 crisis, it is the undervalued functions carried out in female-dominated sectors that are vital for our society. And this has now, of course, made a mark on the budget and our planning process for coming year. We also have an organization that has trained itself in critically examining social norms and recognizing its connections to power and identity and the work required to bring about behavioral change. And to invest in such a body of knowledge, we believe is as important as introducing new technology. So we hope this will serve us well when we try to adopt to post-pandemic society. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Albing. And you have touched upon something we were very keen to listen about the business services, the support also and guidance for SMEs, but also on trust and inclusiveness, on gender and in employment. Thank you so much for your insight on how you are sharing your experience with us. And they were very interesting and good examples. I would like now to turn back to Asia, to Madam Maria Isabella Climaco, Mayor of the city of Zamboanga in the Philippines. We had the pleasure to have Ms. Climaco on our session pre-pandemic last year, but also in 2019 in physical presence here in Vienna. So welcome back, Ms. Climaco. And without further ado, I would like to give you the floor. Please.
Muchas gracias, Bernardo. Paz de Dios y abrazo de Nuestra Señora la Virgen del Pilar y San Jose. It's our fiesta of Zamboanga City today. Vaya con Dios a todos. Assalamualaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Indeed, Bernardo, in your opening session, you said that no city is really prepared for the pandemic. My dear participants and panelists, no mayor in any world is ready for the pandemic. That is why we thank our Director General Lee Yong Kanishka for inviting Zamboanga City and for this opportunity to bridge for cities this year. Because of the COVID pandemic, we foresee technology, digitalization, and data as the future of local governance. Zamboanga City is one of the 25 cities in the Philippines identified by the Philippines Information and Technology Council. Using a whole of a nation approach and a whole of a city approach, we integrated the adaptation of a technology-enabled system and solutions in our COVID response. Crucial to the survival and resilience of our local body and economy is what we call the BOSS. It's the Business One-Stop Shop, which adopted an online system for processing of business registrations and renewals. Our COVID data tracker is an online knowledge repository which houses our COVID reports, statistics, updates available to the public for transparency and accountability. We have what we call the registration and application for our local vaccination program and the e-quarantine pass that have been migrated online. To date, we have around 21% of our 997,000 population vaccinated. This is very little compared to other cities in the Philippines. And as I talk to you, we have a surge of the Delta variant in Zamboanga City with more or less 180 average daily COVID cases. Very tough. Our city is really a mix of indigenous peoples, Muslims, Christians. There's a threat also of terrorism, there's threat of disaster, and there's also the threat of COVID. So as an investment towards resiliency, we are pivoting towards digitalization. In the works of our closed circuit television surveillance system, our e-reporting system, or a platform for ISO and e-payments. We also harmonize our efforts with the tech-enabled solutions of the national government for the pandemic, such as the Safe, Swift, and Smart Pass, a travel pass, Stay Safe contact tracing application, and the VaxCert or vaccination certification. However, technology-enabled solutions have to go hand in hand with inclusive recovery that is powered by our people on the ground. Without consideration for access of inclusion and digitally enabled government risks, isolating and alienating vulnerable communities. So to remain connected and engaged on the ground, we convened our barangay information system, wherein we have each community has a reporting system of young people that will be able to get real-time information of disaster and responses. So the members of this barangay information network serve as localized information officers that provide feedback system. Digital literacy is now a must. That's why we have provided learning laboratories for our children. So through the Department of Information, Communication, and Technology, we have private organizations providing digital literacy programs being rolled out for small, medium, and enterprises and women, and we even funded a program to train young entrepreneurs in digital technology called, I think, together with Facebook. And digital economy is on the rise from food services to online markets, and we need to have policies to support the economy and measures to protect the consumers. We also need to have a unified approach to technology-based innovations of a whole of a city, whole of a nation digital roadmap. A specific concern for Zamboanga City remains to be power. We are currently exploring sustainable energy sources to support our growing needs, and technology is a powerful tool, but we need people to make technology work. So one thing that I've learned from my first session in Bridge for Cities was that one of the mayors, I think, of Albania planted trees, and we've also learned, and we're trying to plant 100,000 trees to protect the families. So a través desde Ciudad de Zamboanga, Filipinas, muchísimas gracias y vaya con Dios a todos.
Muchísimas gracias a usted. Mucho gusto, señora Climaco. Thank you for sharing all this experience on the Smart Path digital literacy, the way you are through the digital roadmap, also addressing the needs of SMEs, of the more vulnerable, of women and young people. And I see that you are still struggling with the vaccination process. but also looking to the future. Another example where trees symbolize the future, symbolize sustainability. And without further ado, I would like to move to our host city, Vienna, Mr. Ernst Wohler, first president of the Provincial Parliament, City of Vienna. Vienna is the event co-host and has been a strong supporter of Bridge for Cities events throughout the years. Mr. Wohler, you have the floor now.
Vienna has included matters of sustainability in its strategic consideration for some time now. The guiding strategic document in this regard is the Smart City Vienna Framework Strategy. The ultimate goal of this strategy is to improve quality of life while conserving resources. This is to be achieved through social and technological innovations. The framework strategy also serves as the central instrument to address Vienna's contribution to the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Having such a long-term strategy that lies out a general development part is of course also helpful when addressing crises such as the coronavirus pandemic. Basic goals such as the reduction of greenhouse gases, Vienna's focus on social inclusion, or the creation of a needs-based digital infrastructure are of course not abandoned during a crisis. These goals still stand, and some might have been even positively influenced by the pandemic and the necessity to quickly react that is brought about. However, neither of these topics is the one that gained most attention through the pandemic. This is certainly the topic of resiliency. And this will have a lasting impact on the strategic considerations of the city of Vienna. The updated version of the framework strategy, which is currently under development, will certainly have a stronger focus on resiliency than before. This is also true for other strategic documents, such as the Urban Development Plan, which is going to be updated in a few years' time. Even so, the topic of resiliency will now gain more attention in the strategic documents of the City of Vienna. It is safe to say that Vienna has a long tradition in far-sighted planning. Best examples are the comprehensive public transportation network, Vienna's public housing, or the protection of the green belt that surrounds Vienna. The earliest law to protect this green belt, for example, dates back more than 100 years. Closing last gaps in this green belt and safeguarding green spaces in Vienna has regained attention through lockdowns as more people were seeking recreational areas within their environment.
Mr. Costello, how are the COVID-19 crisis and the digital transformation shaping the smart city agendas of tomorrow? We would like this second round to be a bit shorter, to the point. We don't have too much time, but please give us your final word on this. Mr. Costello, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. And it was great to listen to all of the contributions from virtually all over the world. The COVID obviously has a major impact on our city. I have indicated some of the ways in which we are trying to adjust to it. I would say that probably the biggest impact is that it has meant that we have to think about issues that we thought we had probably 10, 15, 20 years to think about. And they are issues, much of them are related to climate change, much of them are related to how we work, how we school, how our education goes, and so on. For example, in the workplace, probably the most immediate and drastic effects have been experienced, because all of us over the last 2.5 years have had to work from home. Pretty much all of us over that period of time have had difficulty in socializing. Everything that we did in terms of our life experiences were problematic, and we had to rethink the manner in which we operated. So I think it is the response to that which is probably the greatest, Can we, for example, come up with a system now in relation to the workplace, that the workplace isn't just any one place, that it is far more flexible, that we can have private hybrid approach, part of it remote in terms of working. This would also make a major contribution in relation to gender equality, because it would give greater flexibility to men and women, and indeed to children in terms of education as well. All of that, I think, is the largest effect that we are going to, is the largest issue that is going to affect us. And let's say we go about providing space in the home for work. We're going to have to look at new standards for our homes as well. And the workplace, our employers are going to have to adjust to a situation whereby they're going to have to respond to a workforce that is going to be in the office sometime, perhaps going to be at home sometime, going to be elsewhere sometime. It may also require that we reconfigure our offices, and it will create challenges in relation to footfall in our cities. If people aren't coming into the heart of the city to work to the same degree, how are we going to deal with that in terms of retail, in terms of footfall, in terms of possibly antisocial behavior? So there are major challenges there that are, just coming straight out, that have to be reduced. And we're seeking to engage in the best way we can with technology, with new thinking, and to try and address them as best we can. There are a lot of other issues too that we could mention in terms of transport, mobility, how to ensure that there is greater public transport, how we deal with private vehicles, now that we're beginning to reconfigure our cities to a greater degree, where we probably have much less private vehicles operating within those cities. So therefore, a lot of cities require a greater degree of public transport in terms of what we have in bus connects, in terms of light rail, in terms of main rail, and so on. So all of these are in the pot, in the melting pot that we're working on for an overall plan for reconfiguring, if you like, and envisioning Dublin into the future.
Thank you so much. Reconfiguring, yes, moving to a new hybrid world will have a number of challenges. Thank you for highlighting so many of them. We could go on in the discussion for long, but let's move on to Three-Town, Freetown, the Three-Town campaign. And I very much enjoyed the elaborated narrative you had. And you mentioned that 500 jobs were created in 2020 in relation to the campaign. And we wanted to hear more the involvement of the citizens. How could this be managed in the midst of the pandemic? Mr. Hubbard.
Well, thank you for that. We plant trees through a community model. So the planting, well, first we grow trees, right? So the planting and the growing are all steeped within a context for creating viable job opportunities, green jobs within communities. The way that we will get the trees to be protected is that they're integrated into the lifespan, into the dynamics of those particular communities. And so we incentivize people to plant and grow. 500 was last year. Our trajectory now, we would be employing somewhere around 1,000 people. Sort of right across the Western area. And that's direct. And then the indirect could be anywhere between another 1,000 to 1,500 when we include every component of the value chain. So we nurse the seedlings. The seedlings are then brought into the communities. The communities then plant the trees, and then they grow the trees. And in the growing, that's where the digital tracking comes in, so that we can actually then track the survival of the tree. On the basis of the tree surviving, they get a payment, right? And like I said, it's 18 payments over 36 months, about 21 million leones that would go to an individual tree tracker, or a grower. So within the context of understanding all of these dynamics, we then look at all of the folks who are in the community. And most of the places where this is happening are in our most vulnerable places. The places in the high hills, the places along the coast, and a lot of those are informal as well as formal dynamics, but a lot of informal dynamics have sprung up across the city. 35% of the city, about 1.2 million people, live in informal settlements. A number of those informal settlements, sort of are bearing the brunt of climate change. We need to green those areas, and restore particular land in and around, sort of those spaces. And so we have worked with communities to be able to do that. So what I'm saying is that the heart of this is about creating green jobs. It's about connecting people to nature, connecting them to their space. And in doing so, creating an incentive, sort of that does one critical thing. Our big problem is deforestation. There are more trees being cut than being planted. And so what we need to do is create a dynamic inside of communities that changes that. So with the economic dynamic, that's one piece, but also we have created what we call climate action ambassadors. All of the influencers, from the imams, the pastors, to the youth leaders, to the women leaders, to school-age children, teachers and the rest, we're creating a movement, that looks at sort of how we can transform our city to a more climate resilient city, understanding that what we do within those spaces have now been impacting us in the most negative way, sort of as the natural dynamics of climate change affects us. And so we localize the language of climate change. We make, we're having conversations where people link it to their lives and to their livelihood. And this is helping us to, have it to be community and people-centered, and then injecting resources into that process to create alternatives. Because a lot of the deforestation is happening because of settlement issues. It's happening because of sort of the way we cook, right? So if we're going to move away from charcoal and wood-based dynamics, we need to have alternatives. And so the incentives and the resources that we link into the systems that go directly into the community, that's sort of the resources that we have generated from this process, or that we have mobilized. 80% of all of the resources, more than 80%, go back into the community. It's building linkages that can expand livelihood dynamics, and that can change the environmental context at the same time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Howard. Moving from Freetown to Treetown to Greentown. Thank you so much. And let's go back to Cambodia. The experience that was there, how has the crisis impacted the ability of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises to stay in business? Can you say a word on that, Mr. Barat, please?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I believe that not only Phnom Penh capital, but other cities as well, we believe that the SME would be the very important actors to promote the inclusive recovery post-COVID. So in our capital city, we have more than 5,000 registered SME officially. So the ability of those more than 5,000 are hit by the COVID-19. So, however, with this crisis, we have the bad thing, but we have also the good thing as opportunity. The bad thing is that many of our young entrepreneurs, they are new entrants into the market. They have less experience. They have weak financial backup. So the COVID-19 has disrupted their growth prospect, resulting from the lower demands for service and consumption, and also in some cases because of the lockdown also. And the other bad thing is that their access to finance is getting tougher. Financial institution become more vigilant and on approving the loan, and loan access is rather costly. So these are the challenge that our SME they are facing, and it is hard for them. But there's also a good thing about the crisis. Because of the unexpected outbreak of the pandemic and its prolonged existence, the people, we are trying to live a new normal and to contain the spread of the virus. So then there is a big opportunity for business to develop into digitalization. So this could provide business with cost saving as well as market gains. For example, I can give you an example about the digital marketing. Before the COVID outbreak, if you want to have the marketing or advertisement in our capital, it costs a lot of money because you have to pay for the billboard and it's very expensive. But with the new digital era and also because of the COVID-19 constraint, people, they are going to toward the digital marketing. They are going online. They are going with the social media, Instagram, Facebook. It's more cheaper and it provides more efficiency and cost saving. So now we have a very strong demand on online shopping, food delivery service. Like today, I based on the food delivery for my dinner in Cambodia while waiting for our roundtable, and also we promote cashless payment. So these are the opportunity for the SME to grow in the digital era. And what we have done as the government or as authority, we have done a lot of things for them. First, the tax incentive, and it is a good thing for them because we suspend for the business which are affected by the COVID-19. So we provide them a tax incentive. We promote the SME bank. We promote the loan restructuring for the SME, and we also promote the startup centers to help to incubate startup for the young entrepreneurs. And also we promote the vaccination policy, but there's now, as I just mentioned, that in our capital, nearly 100% of the targeted group were vaccinated, and now we are boosting our third dose. So these are what we are doing as effort to keep the ability for our SME to survive and to prosper. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much. And let's move more southern Africa again to Sri Lanka. Ms. Nanayake, these changes and these lessons learned, will they serve to rethink resilience, inclusivity, well-being? Please give us your last word on that.
Okay, thank you. One big lesson was that of the myriad of different interventions required during a time like this. Some important ones tend to be neglected due to other urgent demands on scarce resources. For example, the mental impact on people during a time like this, especially on children and those with mental health concerns, is significant. But it doesn't necessarily get the attention or priority it needs due to the urgent focus on trying to stop the spread of the COVID disease. And of course, that should get priority. For me, the key to minimizing such issues being neglected is preparation, a plan on how these issues can be also addressed, that can be tweaked according to the situation and put into action is key. And the use of technology is crucial to implement the plan and deliver those services. We should have a strong telenetwork for public awareness on health issues and to provide access to health facilities remotely. In this regard, social media, online meetings, online reservations, systems of vaccination and PCR have been remarkable initiatives. Technology has been recognized as one of the crucial facts throughout the pandemic. It has become one of the basic tools which can be used to build resilience, inclusivity, and well-being of every city. Not only for the health issues, but also technology plays a decisive role to overcome economic challenges during the pandemic too. Given our vision of becoming the smartest city in the South Asian region, the lessons learned from the pandemic have provided an additional drive for smart city development with the increase focus on teleworking, telemedicine, surveillance systems, online commerce, and education. Therefore, technology has a large role to play, not only during pandemics, but also to enhance the adaptation to future events by raising citizens' awareness.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Nanayake, this is a good element, inclusiveness and well-being. To move to Ms. Ogren, she mentioned in her intervention, you mentioned, Ms. Ogren, about gender, about youth. Do you think that the recovery can boost the inclusion and can change economic empowerment of women and youth, or this is something that will remain as usual? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Casadilla, and for the question. I believe in our case, we need to work inclusive with understanding the labor market and how it's structured, and to make sure when it comes to recovery that we have a critical eye on the way we work with innovation to make sure it is not gender blind. Also, understanding of different living conditions is necessary, and one way of ensuring this is to use gender disaggregated data. We also need to ensure that the measures we take when it comes to recovery does not mean a setback when it comes to gender equality, but rather that we use this opportunity to question existing gender norms. And doing that also means doing the work and to use gender disaggregated data, but also analyzes, change, and to give the work with gender equality a strong mandate, and not to look at it like an add-on. I also think we need to make sure that women in different ways have a seat around the table in decision making, and if it's not actual women, to make sure that the life conditions of women in our city, or if it's our region or in the country, that is present. So doing that, we can ensure that the things we have learned during the COVID-19 crisis, that a lot of the work, the essential work, is work done by women, so that is not forgotten when we are moving forward. So I believe without the inclusion of women and young people, there will not actually be a recovery. So that also must be included. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ogren. And nuevamente, señora Climaco, what should be the role of productive transformation policies? Can they support urban economies to reap the benefits also, but there are risks, and to minimize the risk of digitalization?
Well, I think it is very, very important to balance between digitalization and productive economies today. For countries like us, wherein children have to adapt to digital learning, we still have to use the paper and pen, reproducing it, because not all of our population have the capacity for smartphones or tablets. That's why we need to balance the use of digitalization and also utilizing whatever sources we have in our local governments for us to be able to meet our goals. For example, as a teacher, education is very vital, despite of the difficulty of children to have face-to-face classes. So how did we adapt to technology? What we did was to provide 32 learning laboratories for teachers to be able to reproduce their learning modules, for them to be able to reproduce their technological manuals and teaching by having themselves pre-recorded classroom lessons. So in this way, Bernardo, I think we really have to look at the limitations of local governments like us that have limitations of digital technology, but really opening up the opportunity for even senior citizens to enjoy the Zoom sessions, to be with the family wherever they may be, even if they're on lockdown. So today, I'd like to congratulate UNIDO, We are making a trailblazing activity by involving everyone from other parts of the world to be one in Bridge for Cities program. Muchísimas gracias y vaya con Dios desde Ciudad de Zamboanga and Filipinas.
Muchas gracias, señora Climaco. Thank you for addressing the issue of the climate, the digital divide, which is very challenging, especially in education. But let's move back to our host city of Vienna. And Mr. Wohler, can you provide us some concrete examples of measures taken by the city of Vienna to ensure social protection and resilience throughout the pandemic?
As for shorter-term actions and projects that were implemented since the start of the pandemic, there are a few things to mention. First of all, the economic aid schemes that were and are implemented under the program Wien geht weiter. This program includes special financial assistance to get through the crisis for single-person businesses, for new innovative solutions, for businesses that want to develop an online offer, for ground floor businesses, for the hotel industry, for creatives, as well as for nightclubs. Another measure to reboost the local economy after the lockdowns were the gastronomy vouchers. The city of Vienna set out vouchers to every household in Vienna that could be redeemed in a lot of participating restaurants. The value of the voucher depended on the size of the household. This measure intended to support restaurants which were not allowed to open during the lockdowns. More than 30 million euros were thus paid out to Viennese restaurants. Last but not least, Vienna implemented some measures that were commonly implemented in cities throughout the pandemic. These include, among others, temporary bike lanes and the creation of shared spaces. Some streets where the dimension of sidewalks did not allow people to comply with physical distancing regulations while taking a walk were opened for pedestrians and cyclists. Similar shared spaces, which are not temporary, exist throughout the city.
Thank you so much to all the panelists for this stimulating and insightful discussion. We have seen cities and economic powerhouse innovation hubs that improve livelihoods and trigger prosperity. Thank you for all the speakers for having presented how cities' innovate initiatives can help build resilience and inclusivity in the short and medium term so that the government, households, vulnerable groups, and the business sector can weather future shocks and stresses. I would like to thank also to our audience for the interest and active participation throughout our chat. I hope the discussion has resonated well with them. Finally, let me say that it was a great pleasure to be with you today and be your moderator. I wish you to stay in good health and all the best. Once again, thank you very much to all of you. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Bernardo, and thank you to all our guests. The points we have heard complement very well those discussed during the first roundtable. They provide us with a comprehensive overview of cities' efforts towards inclusive and sustainable recovery. Next on the agenda is our business roundtable, which will focus on the importance of partnerships for achieving climate-related goals in cities as we prepare for COP26. So please stay tuned. We will resume after a short break of 15 minutes.